Sight reading skills are one of the #1 insecurities for many piano students and even teachers. Building up your music literacy skills to the point where you can read music on the spot, on the fly, is no easy feat. In this video, I'll share 6 steps you need to develop your own sight reading skills or those of your students. Let's do this. Step 1 is to focus on the intervals. By reading the patterns rather than individual notes, you're going to become a lot more fluent with reading. Now, if you didn't start off through an intervallic reading method, you can absolutely transfer yourself over or transfer your student over. It will take some work in the beginning to get used to thinking in this way, but it is the way most fluent sight readers read naturally. Even if they didn't learn this method, this is the way they ultimately end up reading fluently. Think about it. You can't possibly process that many letter names at the speed that we play pieces at, on the spot. You have to be able to see patterns and groups of notes, not individual dots. And when we start off by reading intervals between the notes, so it goes up this much or down that much, and relating that to the piano, that builds that pattern recognition skill, which is so useful for reading quickly. Step 2 is to build up your pattern vocabulary. So these are those patterns that you see and you immediately know what that is. A great example of this at the intermediate level is an Alberti bass pattern. This is a pattern that goes root, 5th, 3rd, 5th, or if you want to think about it in finger numbers, 5, 1, 3, 1 a lot of the time, depending on the situation. So this pattern comes up all the time in classical music and some pop music even, and that's just one example. That, to an experienced reader, is not all of those individual notes. It's just a sequence, it's one thing. And by chunking things in this way, you start to build up the ability to read much more music much more quickly. Think about it like as if you were looking at a word. You don't read the individual letters now, do you? You read sight words, and the stronger you became at reading, the more you could read sight words with a bunch of syllables in them because you'd seen them before. Well, that's what this is like. These are old friends. An Alberti bass in A minor is just one piece of information to us, not lots of little pieces of information. And every time that repeats, that's true again. Step number 3 is to get good at note names. Note names are not first and foremost in reading, despite what you may think. However, after you have gotten used to intervals and patterns within music and start to recognize those, that's when note names start to become more relevant. Because as the music starts to jump around, we do need to be able to name individual notes or know what they are on the piano. It doesn't really matter what they're called, but where they are on the piano is important because we can't always see a huge interval, right, and identify it as such. We need to know what the note actually is. And we need to know the starting notes for pieces as well, and to be able to double check our work. So to get good at note names, loads of games for note names, apps for practicing them, flashcards, whatever system works for you. If you're a teacher who's looking for games, for not just note names, but also intervals and lots of other things, then vibrantmusicteaching.com is the place to go. Now the next tip is really important, and it's the one teachers often miss out. So come close and listen carefully while I share this one with you, and then let me know in the comments if this is something you often miss. Step 4 is building the oral picture. So this is about building up your ear so that you're able to hear the music yourself. Even with sight reading pieces, a really experienced reader sees music and is able to hear it or have some sense of how it might sound. Now this takes a long time to develop, as you might imagine, but the best tool you have is right in your face. It's your voice. Sing everything and try sight singing stuff that you have never heard before. You're going to be way off at first, and that's absolutely fine. But by guessing it and then playing it for yourself to see what it really sounds like, you'll get better and better over time. If you just think about what it might sound like, you won't get as much feedback. So sing it out loud, even if you think it's embarrassing, it is so worth it. Now, step 5 is to read a lot. You need to read tons of music, way more than you probably think. You need lots and lots of books, and you can download sheet music online, you can find it lots of places, but you just need to read way more than most people get to at each level. Don't always be pushing up to the next level, but rather read or have your students read the music at their own level in vast quantities, really way more than you usually would think. This is just like reading again. If you were learning to read English, you would read a ton of books. That's what we encourage kids to do in school. And yet we don't always think about it in music. So make sure they are reading a lot. There is one tip left, so hit that like button if you've enjoyed this so far before I share the final tip with you. Tip 6, read more. I'm sorry, I know it's a bit of a cheat, but it is the truth. From here, all you can do is just read more and more. And bonus part of this tip, if you can read in a setting where you're playing with other people, that is going to develop your reading skills so much more. So play in duets with people, play in a band, accompany someone, do anything to be in a situation where you cannot stop. A good backup plan for this is backing tracks, actually. If you have pieces that have backing tracks with them, like our Reading Railroad series does inside Vibrant Music Teaching, then that's a great place to work on this. But ultimately, the more you can play with other people, even if they're digital other people, the better. Because when you're working alone, it is so tempting to stop and fix mistakes or slow down when something looks hard. And you might even do it imperceptibly. But once you start to play with someone else, you don't have a choice. You have to come up with something on time. And coming up with the wrong notes on time is way better than coming up with, well, nothing, or than playing the right notes after the fact. That is always going to be a weaker option when you're playing with others, but also in general. Try for yourself. Try playing something and play the wrong notes, a few of the wrong notes. Let's say Old MacDonald, play a few wrong notes, and then try it playing the rhythm wrong. The one with the rhythm wrong is unrecognizable. The one with some wrong notes is still pretty much Old MacDonald. So make sure that you're playing with other people, and if you are on your own, use backing tracks or a metronome at the very least so that you can't stop. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do leave me a comment below and let me know if you did, as well as letting me know your top sight reading tips.